Welcome to Devlog 16 for Project 2, a dark fantasy VR game we're making here at Alta. The last few devlogs have been jam-packed with new updates, from characters to our social space, and most recently we showcased an update on our ranged skeleton enemies. Well, this week I can confirm players have their own ranged weapons too. But before that, I want to go into a dungeon and show you all some other updates. First up is the torch. Last time I showed you all a work-in-progress version of the torch flame, and that has been improved even further now and looks incredible. What do you all think to it? I love waving this thing around in VR and holding it up to light the dark. It is still work in progress, and we'll probably see it iterated on and change in the future, but for now I think this is looking great. While we're here in the dungeon, you may notice these, which are our initial implementation of environmental traps with direct interactions. Although these are less traps at this stage and more environmental interactables, but you'll see traps in just a second. But for these, you can hold this button on the wall and the portcullis lifts up, meaning areas are opened up or blocked off. For example, if you're being chased by skeletons or worse players, you may see an area where some of these have already been raised, and you can send them slamming down and stopping the enemies from being able to give chase. Or maybe you're more of the type to betray your fellow player. Maybe you lift a portcullis up for another player to gain access to an area with loot, and then drop it down, trapping them inside. I'm sure none of you watching would ever do that though. Right? The way we interact with these is currently just temporary, they're just buttons you hold on the walls, but in the future you can expect to see more unique VR interactions and features around these, but there is something else I can already show you all. Spike traps. These can be triggered by pressure plates on the floor and can be pretty devastating. Luckily, you can already lure enemies onto these and get in some easy damage. They can be on a number of surfaces from walls to ceilings, so keep an eye out in the dark for these traps. The team has already been exploring a lot of other traps, and our concept artist Oscar has drawn a few other cool ideas for traps that we could see implemented in the future. Things like the classic arrow traps where you see darts or arrows fly out of crevices in walls, or how about swinging blades that require specific timing to pass? And of course there's lots more. Which of these do you want to see in the game next? Do you have any other cool ideas for environmental traps you want to see and come across in the dungeon? Let us know in the comments below, or join the discussion on our Discord server and let us know there. Now you've all been waiting for it, so let's talk about ranged weapons. And we are starting this journey with the initial implementation of ranged player weapons with our crossbow. We'll look at it some more in-game in a moment, but I wanted to take a look at some more concept art just like the traps, exploring how our player will use and interact with the crossbow. Things like different types of crossbows, to different types of bolts you'll fire, but most importantly for VR, the way you fire and reload the crossbow. These are all things we've been considering and discussing internally while working on the crossbow. Talking of, let's take a proper look at how this thing works in-game with a little bit of a shooting range. Currently this is a temporary model for the crossbow to get the mechanics in place, but you can see I can take aim and fire. Currently we don't have the physicalized reload mechanic in yet, but the team are working on that, but I wanted to show that to you all in the concept art earlier so you can see that we are planning that. So stay tuned for a future devlog when we have that in-game and I will showcase it. But we do have ammo in the game now, meaning you can buy or collect bolts, and these bundles currently give you 5 bolts, which means you can unleash 5 shots, and then you're out. You can of course stockpile these if you want an inventory full of bolts to really keep unleashing on the enemies over and over. In the future, you can imagine loading a singular bolt from your hip each time and pulling the crossbow back and then taking aim and firing. But don't worry, that's all coming very soon like I mentioned, but I wanted to showcase it all to you at this point so we can follow on its development in future devlogs. But now we do have an easy way to dispatch those pesky archer enemies that I showed in the last devlog. One final thing for this week is we're currently exploring loot rarity, and you can see some early concepts here with the crossbow being drawn in a few different styles but keeping the same core model, meaning you'll be able to find weapons of different rarity that look similar or different. So if you're a big fan of a longsword, you might want to go out there and find a legendary version of it and keep hunting through every chest for that. But in the next devlog, I'm going to give you all a deep dive on how this works so you can see in-game all the different variety of loot, where it's generating everything from the rarity to the damage and the armor level and all of that we have in-game now. So I'm really excited to show you all that in the next devlog, along with some pretty cool new features as well. So stick around for that very soon. And there we go, that's it for this week's devlog. I'm excited to share more with you all soon, from the manual reloading of crossbows to that revamp to loot rarity I mentioned. And as always, please let us know what you thought to this devlog and leave your suggestions on things like the environmental traps and feedback on the crossbow down below in the comments. And if you want to see future devlogs, remember to subscribe and like this video so you can keep up to date on all things Project 2 going forward. I also mentioned that we have a Discord server for Project 2. You can join via the link on the screen or click the link in the description and let us know what you think to what we've shown of the game so far and chat to others watching the game develop too. As always, thank you all so much for watching this week's devlog for Project 2 and see you all in the next one.